Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Matchfit Football Podcast. I'm Darren, and I'm here to host today's show. If there's anything that you need Matchfit football wise, remember to check out Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Matchfit Football. Today's guest is a German international. He is a German player. He's played all the youth levels. In Germany, he's played in the MLS, he's played in the Bundesliga, and he is currently with Vancouver Whitecaps. He is a defender. I think he can play in midfield as well. I'll let him tell you a little bit about that. It is the one and only. It is Florian Jungwirth. Florian, welcome to the podcast. I know you go by the nickname Flo, but we have to do it officially here on the podcast. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Been a great couple of months for you since moving up to Vancouver. You've hit the ground running. You're a fan favorite already. From being in BC Place and watching you play, I get the impression that you love playing football and you're passionate about playing football, keeping clean sheets, and even scoring the odd goal as you've done already for the Vancouver Whitecaps. How's it been for you since you've moved up north of the border?
Yeah, so far very good. Obviously, when you do a transfer during the year, it's always tough, because you're like in between. The team is already set up, the system, the tactics, and also the characters in the team and the mentality. So you don't really have a lot of time to adapt. And I knew that it might be a little difficult, but for me, it was like, I have no time to pretend to be someone else than me. So I was like, either it works or it doesn't. I'm the way I am, and fortunately the team welcomed me really well. The results were pretty good so far. We are right there, just 1 point behind the playoff line. So really good turnaround what we have compared to the first part of the season. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. It's a fun and exciting time.
It is a fun, exciting time, and as we gear up for the last couple of games in the regular season, just before playoffs, you mentioned you've came in at such an important time in the season. A couple of five games to go, if my math is correct, and three of those are at home in BC Place. It's all guns blazing now for the playoffs.
Yeah, six games actually.
Six games, six.
So math little lacking, but it's fine. No, but yeah, 6 games to go, 3 at home, and now obviously a big week with 3 games, 2 on the road. I think that week could be like the groundwork, for the playoff race, because then we have 2 games at home and 1 game at LAFC. So I think the goal should be after that 3 games being above the line and then bring it to the end.
Mm-hmm. That absolutely. And this weekend, Sunday, we're playing at home. Sporting Kansas City are the visitors to BC Place. You're ready to go on Sunday. You're feeling fit and sharp.
Yeah, very much. Obviously a tough opponent, but I think we've proven that since we returned to Canada that BC Place is a fortress. We just lost on the rest. We won in style, and we want to continue that run. And I think last week was obviously a tough result, but it didn't change really the character. I said last week already after the game, because even after the 3rd goal, we still kept insisting. I had good chances for the 2nd goal, and conceded 1 more. But these things happens, and I think it's not a shame to lose at Seattle. But I think even though we made mistakes, the character and the attitude is there, and I think that will make the difference in the end.
Absolutely agree with you, 100% there. Whenever you made the transition from German football over to the MLS, and you ended up, playing at San Jose Earthquakes for a number of years, and you were loved, and you had a great period there. What was the major difference between the European football and the football here in the MLS? What did you notice when you moved across?
Well, in the beginning, I think when I came, and I remember like a couple of Europeans joined the team as well, and I obviously followed MLS for like 2 years or so, so I knew that's gonna be a good league. But in the beginning, you think like, man, I'm the OG from Europe. I'm gonna rock that. But then I was very surprised. The level was already really high, the individual level, very athletic, which is I think the biggest difference to Europe. Most of the games are really like back and forth. And European football is obviously more tactically advanced. I think that's still the biggest difference. The MLS is getting better every year. I think since I joined the league, you see more clubs are more interested now in getting good defenders, taking more care about defense. I think in the beginning, when you see most of the designated players, they were all like strikers, number 10s, or wingers. So they were just like, let's go for it. But now, since the salary went up, and you have more budget, obviously with that budget, you're able to get good defenders. And I think that transition is getting better and better. And I think soon, in a couple of years, we're talking about a top league.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And certainly there's always new teams wanting to join the MLS. The league keeps expanding and the competition gets stronger and challenges get stiffer every single year. But you obviously played in Germany a lot before moving across to San Jose. Tell me a little bit about your journey growing up, and obviously being from Germany, I'm assuming you love football from a young age, but let me scratch that surface a little bit. What made you want to become a professional footballer? Obviously, there's the love of the game, but was there something more to it as well as that?
Well, I think in the beginning it was just everyone, every little boy in Germany, because football was basically the only big sports and everyone wanted to become a professional player. But even in my first years, I always wanted to become an actor, when you have a dream. Yeah, now I'm just a little acting on the field sometimes. That's my only thing. But once I started playing, obviously every little kid is like, hey, I want to become a pro. But then, when I made my first appearances for the under national teams, then you were like, man, this is serious, and you could really end up being a pro. And and then I think it's tough, especially when you're a teenager. I think that's the hardest time where players get separated and making it or not, because obviously you're in a time where you want to hang out with your friends, going out for party, having experiences with girl whatsoever, And I think it's tough when you can't go to these things and people don't understand, because they were like, hey, that's the party of the year, and you were like, no, I can't. And I have a game tomorrow, and everyone's looking. It's like, what's this weirdo talking? What game? Like, I mean, you can't miss that party, And I think it's tough to accept that. And I was happy getting like guidance from my dad, because after a while I obviously tried doing both, going out, having fun, and still playing, but obviously it didn't work out well. And then I remember my dad just say, you got to pick a side, it's fine, get your degree, have fun living a teenage life. It's great. But if you want to have a chance to pro, you got to be fully committed, And from that moment on, I was straight as an arrow and just be like, okay, let's go for it. And unfortunately, it worked out pretty well.
It absolutely has worked out really, really well for you. And something you mentioned there in your response was the word committed. And one of the questions I want to ask for you is, what are the keys to elite performance, or what are the keys to high performance? You mentioned commitment. What else does it take, to play at the top level of your game at the professional level?
Well, I think, like I said, it's a lot. I think you always say you win a war in preparation, and I think preparation for play is key. And there are a lot of different things like recovery, nutrition, watching videos about the upcoming opponent, watching your own games, doing extra sessions, and I remember my old coach from the youth national team. He always told me, because he was like, man, you have like the strongest will I've ever seen in this team, but even though you're not the most talented player, because the other players were far more talented than me, but he was like, you always have to do more than them, to succeed. And then I think that was like marked deep in me, and every time like I see players playing, players making stuff, I'm already thinking, what could I do different, or what could I do more to have a chance to either compete for a starting spot, or if it's my opponent, like how can I beat him? And that was like my keywords basically for for being prepared for a weekend, and obviously preparing for a whole season because it's a lot of games.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of games. It's not only a commitment, of time, but it's a commitment of energy, a commitment of discipline, and of just of all your efforts, really. Because you mentioned nutrition, you mentioned the mindset, you mentioned commitment, you mentioned being ready for the every physical game as well as the high intensity of training. Um, when we sort of get ready for that, is that a part of the game that you enjoy? The preparation side, the recovery, and getting ready for the next opponent.
Yeah, it's something it has to develop. I think when you're a young player, you don't care. You just want to go for training. You don't do a lot of extra stuff because these are all things you have to learn by age, and I think now I'm in a more advanced stage, so I know how important these things are. But obviously when you start your career, you have you have training at 10. You were like, I get up at 9, just eat quick and just go to training, no preparation. And now I would say you get up at 7, then you have time to prepare yourself for breakfast, you work before the training, do some gym or preparation whatsoever, you do the training after. Maybe you hit the gym again or do some recovery at home, you're watching videos. I think that's all things you gotta learn. And it comes with time. But I think if you find players who do it in a young age, I think that's an absolute rarity.
Do you think that that's made a difference in your career? The fact that you were able to sit back and do that and prepare, especially as you've got older, have you noticed it's made a significant difference to how you play and how you train and your overall
Yeah.
performance level?
Yeah, I think my biggest key was my change of my diet, because I think nutrition is still, compared to other sports, a pretty underestimated thing in soccer. It gets better, but at my time when I got pro, no one basically cared what you were eating, drinking, or whatsoever, and I had no clue, obviously. And I was like, okay, I eat what they give me, put me on a plate, but I was like not like really good and healthy. Not every time eating healthy food, but not the right food as well. And I remember I was like 23 or something when I met a nutritionist first. And unfortunately, my wife at that time, my girlfriend, she's really she studied that as well, so she helped me as well. And then I took the advices, trusted them, and then I changed a lot. And then like after I would say more than a half year, so I was really into it, and then I felt big differences. With my body, I was faster, I was stronger, I had less fat, more muscles. My endurance was way more advanced. And then obviously when you see that results and you feel them, you keep going, and then you're still trying to improve the little things. And then I think when I was like 24, 25, I felt like, now I'm really on my peak when it comes to nutrition, and that showed in my performance level.
Absolutely. And even when you look at it now, yourself, maybe Andy Rose as well, some of the older lads in the team, the experienced players, you're able to pass that information on to some of the younger guys that are coming in and around the squad as well.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a big difference. I think it's funny you mentioned Andy, because at my time, when we were younger, and I was younger, and no one cared about me. Like the vets, they let me feel that I was a rookie. Like I remember I had to clean every day like 20, 30 pairs of shoes. They threw them in dirt, peed in the shoes sometimes. Just let me feel, there was a little useless piece of shit. Sorry for the words, but it was like that. But now obviously it's a different time, and now you feel like you have a big portion of experience, and obviously you want to share that with your teammates, but especially with the young players, to give them guidance that they have a good start in their career and don't have to wait till whatever, that they're 25, 26 to understand what they have to do to be on top on the weekends. Because in the end, you benefit as well. If everyone is perfectly prepared for a game, the chances to win is higher.
Absolutely. And even with that, Even this past weekend, you had a young player beside you at centre back because of injuries and stuff like that. How important is that for you to even help him during the game and talk him through a game and help him maybe with positioning as well as focusing on your own game?
Yeah, it's important, of course, especially when you have a game like you play at Seattle.
Yeah.
It's a tough game, a huge crowd. So, when you're younger, you don't have a lot of experiences to play in front of so many fans. So you got to talk, you got to push him, you got to help him. And I think in the end, he did a very good game. He did good things from the back. But obviously you are aware that you got to help. I think with Thomas Hazal, he's a young keeper as well. I think it was the first time for him that he started in front of the crowd too. So it's always important giving these guys help during the game, that they gain confidence during a game, that they use the momentum. You always have momentum during a certain time of the game, and then it's important that you try to use it and try to gain it. And I think that's our job to help these guys then.
Absolutely agree with you. And a word you mentioned in your response is confidence. What breeds confidence, or what gives you confidence, not only in your own performance, but what gives you confidence in the team, in how you're set up, in your performance, in your ability to go out and do your job?
Yeah, I would say it's in the end it's my preparation, because I know I'm prepared 100%. I know I did everything right during the week, so I was like, there's no excuse, but then also you believe in your skill set. I think I've proven many times that I'm not the worst defender in MLS, and that's why I'm never overconfident about that, or arrogant, but obviously I know what I've achieved, and I know what I still can achieve. And like I said, when I'm perfectly prepared, I'm always confident to get the job done.
You're an incredibly passionate player as well. Whenever Austin were leading 1-0 at BC Place, you were jesting to the crowd, come on, make some noise, get up for it, get behind the team. Have you always been a very passionate player, or is that something that's grown in your career with your confidence as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always very passionate. I always talked a lot, probably too much on the field, probably a couple guys on with me, but I always want to talk in a game, to push everyone, and then I would say I have a lot of energy, and in the end it's just the love I have for the game. I mean, besides my family, that's the best thing in the world. And I don't know how many, I have 300 or something professional games, I don't know, but still I get up Saturday morning on game day, I have goosebumps, I'm excited, I could play at 6 in the morning and let's go for it. So, and that hasn't changed in almost 15 years of being a pro. And I just love the game, and I just love being out.
It's phenomenal to see that, and that attitude and that feeling is infectious. You're bound to be rubbing off on other players in the team, guys you're around, young players maybe training with the first team squad that haven't quite maybe made that appearance yet. You're bound to be rubbing off on those. But one of the key things that we've talked about in this podcast is one of the keys to your success is preparation. So give me an example of what you would eat before a game. Would you eat or drink anything at halftime?
Well, I have a very special diet. So I think everyone has an individual diet. So I think there's not just one right way.
Yeah.
For me, I don't eat wheat products. I don't eat any meat. So it's obviously a different way for me. But I think most important is always, like you said, what you eat and when you eat. So on a typical game day, when we play in the evening, I would have a breakfast like between 9 and 10. Usually eat like it's either rye or spelt bread, do some eggs, and on every meal I have a lot of vegetables. Lunch, I try to have a fair share between vegetables, carbs, and protein source. So I usually eat them tofu on game day. And then like 3 hours before the game, it's probably the same. Then just usually at home, I cook just a big portion, to have something for lunch and something before the game. And I only drink water. just water and coffee. But no, I don't drink any juices or sodas or so. Just like really water, tea and coffee, and after a great win, obviously a beer or wine sometimes. But yeah, that's basically my nutrition and what I eat.
Just a beer and a wine sometimes after a victory. It is October, so if there is a victory here on Sunday night, will there be a little beverage or two after, considering the month that we're in and Oktoberfest and everything that comes alongside that?
Yeah, but to be fair, Oktoberfest would be already done. So because it's just the first week of October, and since we have 3 games during the week, it's tough. But hopefully, when we beat San Jose in a week and finish that with a great week, then I think it's okay to have 1 beer and 1 wine, maybe.
Just maybe we'll see how you feel. Also, we've talked about, and you've mentioned in passing about your recovery as well. What do you find works best for you? You've talked about going to the gym and that extra preparation. What about anything like massages or ice baths or heat therapy? Anything along those lines?
Lots. We have a great massage therapist at the training facilities, so I use him. I do a lot of contrast baths, hot and cold tubs, always switching. At home I have these boots, recovery boots. I have the stim, for some, when you get some electricity, when you have some tweaking or something, which obviously gets more when you get a little older. Unfortunately, can't deny that. But we have everything we have, and then it's just your responsibility just to use the sources, and I always do it because, like I said, as you get older, you know how important recovery is, and you use it even more. Mentioned it before, when I was 20 and someone would tell me about hot tub, I was like, man, come on. Let's go home and do something else. But now, I would pay rent for the hot tub, or even the cold tub, just being there.
It's so important, obviously, to your success is that recovery. And it's funny, you mentioned back to when you were 20 and how you would potentially do things different if you knew then what you know now. And certainly a lot of our listeners, potential players who want to go pro, players who are wanting to, enhance their abilities and learn by listening to this show, you're given some valuable insight there about getting your recovery process started and making it consistent from such an early age. Something that's almost goes under the radar with playing in the MLS as well. You've played in Germany. I'm from the UK, so I know what it's like. Where our countries are just a little bit smaller than the area that is covered in the MLS with the US and Canada. You mentioned you have 3 games this week. There's a lot of traveling involved. The other week you ended up playing in Vancouver, then going down to Texas and then back to Vancouver. That's something else that has to be factored in, I'm sure, to not only your diet but your recovery process as well, is the sheer amount of hours that you're traveling every week.
Yeah, obviously that's a big factor. I think you can't compare it with Europe, especially when you have like cross-country trips. I think I looked it up one time, it would be the same if Bayern Munich would play in Qatar, a league game. So it's just the traveling is insane. Since COVID, fortunately, we can fly charter, but before COVID, you have to understand, we flew cross country 2 days before. I remember from San Jose to New York, we left like 6 a.m. from the stadium, drove an hour to San Francisco airport, waited at the gate, then you fly in a regular plane, have like some sort of fucking middle seat, for almost 6 hours. And then you arrive in the hotel, you have time difference 3 hours. So you arrive in the hotel like 9:30 in the night. Then you have like a little session, just to stretch the legs a bit. And next day you're just tired, and you have 1 day actually to get ready for the game and to adjust to the circumstances. And it's brutal. I think from that perspective, for me, that's why I said, like, for me, MLS is the most physical league and most hardest league in the world, because you have the traveling, you have this crazy weather in some areas like Houston, or have altitude like in Colorado, Salt Lake City. So where in the world, what league do you have that? You know, maybe Mexico, you have some tough places as well, but like you can't compare that to Europe.
Yeah, the physical demands in the MLS are so radically different to anywhere, else probably on the planet in terms of overall thing. You could like you just mentioned, you give examples there. You could go to Montreal and play, at the start of the season, it could be absolutely freezing and snowing, and then you could be then your next home game, as you mentioned, is down in Texas, or it could be,
Yeah.
over in California, and it's just so radically different every time, and it's another challenge that players have to face. Something that's unique with the MLS as well is there's so many clubs and so many teams as well, and so many different styles of play. If I was your coach and I said I want to get the best out of Flo, what qualities or what would I need to do to get the best out of you?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I would say my two biggest strengths is my possessioning game, or my ability to read the game, and my build out. So that's why put me on a central position. Like that helps, I think. Like left or right fullback with my lack of speed and not the ability to break lines and build out. I think you wouldn't have a lot of fun with me, But yeah, like now it's good, playing in the back, half left, half right. That's fine, I feel have a little more freedom to drive the ball, and find some pockets or some diagonals. So it's a lot of fun being in that spot. But also I love to play in midfield. I still think it's my best position. But it's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've been integral to the success of Vancouver since you've signed, and having seen you play very often, since you've signed, you've become such an important part of the team here in Vancouver, and it's great to see that. Something that's unique to your journey as well, and if we look back to where your journey started from and where it is now, football's constantly changing. And I think maybe in the last 15 to 20 years, we've seen probably a stronger or quicker evolution in football than maybe we've ever seen in the game. Goalkeepers are now expected to be able to pass a ball like centre midfielders. Centre backs are expected to be able to play a ball. Again, like a playmaker. It's incredible. Have you noticed many changes throughout your career in terms of how the game is played and the changing of the game?
Yeah, I would say mostly it's the speed. I remember sometimes you find some old games from 7-8 years ago, and I'm watching it, I'm like, what is going on there? It looks like 22 drunks are playing, because it's so slow, and I'm like, wow, it feels really so. You definitely see the athleticism and the speed in general on the field is way higher. Like you mentioned, the demand on every position gets higher and higher. Like you said, as a center back, man, you gotta be like a playmaker. You need to have a good build up. As a goalkeeper, you need to be in the game, play with your foot good. So everyone is expecting that from you. And I think just the competition gets better and better. More players, more young players are coming. So it's a tough job, to keep. And obviously you gotta keep going with the time.
Absolutely, it's constant changing. It's the evolution of the game, and it's being able to adapt to those changes while obviously doing your job and staying consistent. And one of the topics I want to touch on is the match fit. I call it the match fit mindset. Talk to me about the importance of having a strong mindset and having that mentality, that just maybe that strong mentality that and you're not going to get discouraged, or if something happens, you're not going to drop the head. How important is mentality to a professional player?
I think it's the most important part. I think it's also something you got to learn with time, and it also comes with experience. But I think your mind can change everything. You cannot be the best talent, but if you don't have the right mindset, or if you lose your mind during the game or during a week, you're out. And other way around, maybe you're not the most talented player and you have the big mentality and everything, you can go way, way far, or you can be really far in your career. And I always felt like my mentality always helped me and my will to win games. Either when I didn't play, sometimes I never accepted it. I worked more, did more, or now even during a game, I would say I'm a master of trash talk. I love to trash talk all the games. I love to go in the mind of my opponents. And say something to them that they lose their calmness, their composure and everything. So it's a crucial part of the game and nothing to underestimate.
It absolutely is. And I feel like that mindset controls everything. You talked about your preparation, your diet, going to the gym to work out beforehand, to stretch. I think that all comes from the mindset. And if your mindset's wrong, you're likely going to be all wrong all over the place. It's just a personal opinion. I could be wrong in that. That's just how I think. In terms of challenges in your career, what's the biggest challenge that you've faced as a player, and how did you overcome that?
I think it's always it's tough. There are many challenges, but I think it's like something when the coach doesn't want to, or not. I don't want to say it doesn't like you, because in the end it's not about feelings, about business. But there are moments in your career where the coach doesn't need you, in the starting lineup, or you're not even a guy who's coming on, especially as a defender. It's different because you don't change so many defenders during a game, so you don't have a lot of chances. And I think still, being hungry and having the will to change that is the hardest part, because in the end of the day, it would be much easier to give up and be like, oh, this coach doesn't like me, he's an idiot, he doesn't know anything. And obviously everyone had a point in his career where he thought like that, me included, out of question. But at the end of the day, it doesn't help you, and doesn't bring you further, because the only guy who can change it is you, and you gotta convince the coach, that he made a terrible decision, and you should be the guy. And and I think that's like, I felt always like it's like a story of my career, because I always had, I felt like in 14 years, maybe in like 2 years or 3 years of my whole career, I was really where a coach was like, yeah, this is my starter no matter what. So I was always like in the beginning of the season not playing, or maybe just barely playing. But in the end of the season, if you look at my stats, I think in every year I ended up at 25 plus games. And in the end of the year, I played all the time. And I always felt that was my strength, to have the mentality to never give up and overcome this moment,
It brings me nicely onto the next topic. You mentioned never giving up and almost proving the coach wrong. If you weren't a starter by the end of the season, you were going to be a starter. And it brings me on to what I like to call motivation. If I said what motivates you, or what gets you going and gets you excited and says, right, let's go, we're going to war today, lads. It's us, our 11 against this 11, and we're going into war and we're all fighting for each other. In terms of motivating factors, is the fact that maybe a coach doesn't see you as a starter at the beginning of a season, is that the motivating factor for you? By the end of the season, you're the first name in the team sheet?
Nah, I don't know if that's the motivating factor, because it's obviously an exhausting thing,
Yeah.
Because when you're like, man, again, or I'm not playing, and because you have the passion, but at the end of the day, everyone wants to play. And then, like you mentioned, you wake up Saturday morning on game day and you're like, man, let's go. And then 2 seconds later, you were like, no, you're not gonna play. I mean, I could tell you it doesn't matter if you play or not, because you're part of the team, blah, 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 but that's bullshit. In the end of the day, you want to play. And if you don't play, you don't feel the same. That's just a matter of fact. You can still, of course, then it's the biggest difference. Are you still on game day being a team player or not? Being there for the team, helping in every way you can, even though you don't play or just come on. That's another story. But in the end of the day, the biggest motivation is waking up Saturday morning and be like, yes, I'm going to play tonight. I can play in front of a nice crowd, and I can, besides my family, doing the things I love the most. And this is just playing and trying to win a game with all costs.
Absolutely agree with that. And even as a centre back as well, how important is a clean sheet, is a shutout for you as a defender?
I think it's individually. I gotta be honest, for me it was never like a big thing, because obviously you're happy when you have a clean sheet, but for me it was like, when we won the game, I was happy. I didn't mind if it was a 4-3 or whatever, but obviously I think for goalies it's different. They obviously go for a clean sheet, and it's mentally a big thing. But in general, I would say it's individually. Some teams are let's go for the clean sheet, and then you lead 4-0, and then like against RSL, I remember the guys got crazy when we conceded a goal. I was like, guys, chill out. This 4-1, we won the game. We had a hell of a game. It's fine, But yeah, that's just my opinion. So
at the end of the day, a win's a win, right? And obviously, if you keep a clean sheet, brilliant, and you aim to do that. But at the end of the day, it's about winning the game of football and 3 points and moving up on the table, or if it's a cup game into the next round. I don't care. The team I support, I just want to be in the next round. I don't care how we get there.
Yes, that's it.
As we begin to wrap up, and I don't want to keep you literally all day, but do you have any rituals or superstitions or routines that you would do pre-game, post-game, something that you feel keeps you in the groove?
Well, nothing crazy. I gotta say, I always, when we're in the locker, I always watch some stupid TV shows or something to be relaxed. Now I'm watching on my phone Bill Cosby Show, which is not a stupid show, great show. I don't know. I remember I watched it like 15 years ago, and then I found it, and now since I'm here, I'm always watching that. Before I watched a stupid German TV show, like I watched as a kid. So it's like, it's called X Factor. It's about stupid horror stories, and then they ask you in the end, is it a true or a false story? It's all false stories, but then just some stupid things. But basically, I just try something, to calm me down, distract me a little bit, because obviously there's a lot of tension when you go in a building, when you're in the locker. So I always try to be calm before I go out to warm up. And yeah, after the game, I don't have special rituals or anything. Nothing crazy, I would say.
I mean, it's probably totally different for you as a player than it is for me. When I come to watch you play, sometimes I feel like you're in the stadium forever before the game gets underway, and you're excited and you're waiting, big game, can't wait, and the nerves are up and stuff like that. I can only imagine what that's like as a player. So obviously that calming, whether it be a comedy, whether it be something funny or silly, just to help relax you and take your mind away from maybe the seriousness of the game, because as soon as the whistle goes, seriousness comes.
Yes, true. Yeah, like you said, it's everyone has his own way, to calm themselves down. I think most of the guys still listening to music or watch some TV or whatever, But like I said, there's no one way. Everyone has his way to calm himself down, after the game as well. Like, I remember when we lost the game, and some guys, they took their phone out, and they played games, and some guys, they got crazy. They're like, man, we lost the game, and how can you be like that? But I'm like, if that's your way to calm yourself down, that's fine with me. Like, I get always crazy after a game when we lose. I love to smash things around and destroy something, but that's obviously not the way I recommend to everyone. But yeah, like I said, everyone has his way, and it must help him to have a clear mind once kickoff starts, and that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I like to ask every single professional that we do the show with, we do have a lot of young people listening who have aspirations to become a professional footballer. If you could give one piece of advice to a young person or a young player who wants to go pro, who wants to make it at the elite level, what piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think most important is time management. I think it helps if you write yourself a schedule. What do you do during the week when you have team training, when you have school, and then you have to find gaps where you do extra work. Because if you do the same as anyone else, you don't become pro. Sorry, table just broke. Sorry. So yeah, like I mentioned, I think you need to have extra sessions, extra work, and you have to find these times, and you can't just be like, oh, I do it Tuesday, Wednesday, but then some appointments come up or you have to study for tests or whatsoever. So I think a schedule helps. And then, like I said, from the mindset wise, I'm like, look at the guy who is working the most in your team or around, and then do always more than he does.
So almost, copy that like indirectly, even use that person as a mentor. You see someone, the hardest worker in the room, go, I'm going to give 1%, 10% more than him to get to where I'm going.
Yeah, I think that would be a good start.
Well, I want to thank you obviously for your time today. You have come in from training. It has been like, a monsoon of rain today. It's been a horrible day here where we are. Where can people connect with you on social media if they want to continue to follow your journey? Where can they find you?
Yeah, mostly I'm on Instagram. So if you want to follow me, guys, that always helps. I try to answer messages. Obviously, sometimes I have a lot of messages and can't answer them all, but I surely try, give my best, or send a comment under a post of mine, and I send a stupid or funny comment back, whatever you like to have. But yeah, that's it.
Well, guys, everyone who's listened to this show, I encourage you to look Florian up on Instagram, give him a follow, engage with him, like his post, see what's happening, see what's going on for the rest of the season for the Whitecaps as well. It's going to be a really good, really big end of season. Every game feels like a cup final at the minute, so it's really good. I encourage you to get watching, get listening, get connecting with Florian as well. Obviously, I wish you the best of luck this weekend. Hopefully, being in the stadium, I get to see you there. Maybe score a cheeky goal for me, something like that. We'll see what
Nice.
happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for your time today, Florian. I really do appreciate it.
Sure, man.